And Catherine, would you like to introduce tonight's speaker?
All right. Thank you. I am very pleased to introduce JP Cavigelli, who is the prep manager and field trip organizer and collections manager at the Tate Geological Museum at Casper College in Wyoming. One of JP's first field experiences was in 1983, working in search of small Cretaceous mammal teeth with the University of Wyoming team, mostly in the Bighorn Basin. After that, JP spent 5 years adventuring as a ski bum and whitewater rafting guide in Colorado and Australia before returning to Wyoming in 1990 to join a paleontology field crew at the University of Wyoming. He has lived in Laramie, working off and on in paleontology for 14 years, doing field work as well as a 2-year post as the collections manager for the University of Wyoming's Department of Geology and Geophysics. JP was a fossil outfitter running Western paleo safaris for 6 years. For the past 30 or so years, JP has been doing freelance fossil preparation in his personal prep lab. He has also had the good fortune of having been invited to join international paleontological expeditions to Niger, Mongolia, Tanzania, Alaska, and North Dakota. In his 20 years at the Tate Museum, he has led collecting trips all over the state to collect small and large fossils, ranging from D, the mammoth, and Lyrex to microscopic mammal teeth, and as he says, really old insects and ichthyosaurs. When he's not involved with fossils, JP enjoys bird watching, traveling, and I gotta add this, hanging out with his super fragilistic expialidocious wife. So I turn it now to JP.
Hi, thanks for having me. Uh, I will say that thanks for pronouncing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious fairly well. Last time I used it, it was some young person introducing me, and they didn't know that word.
I'm happy I didn't sing it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes,
All right, let's see if I can get this started. All right, you guys ready?
we're ready.
I don't know if I am, but let's go. All right. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about fossil birds of Wyoming. Fairly fine-tuned topic, but it's pretty cool. As the little bird there in the background gives you a sneak preview. So let's just see. I am at the Tate Geological Museum in Casper, Wyoming. This is a little shameless plug. Look, there's the website address at the bottom. If anybody wants to work on dinosaur bones over the summer, we do fossil dinosaur digs. I'll just let you look that up on the website. And now I'm going to talk about the state of Wyoming. There's the state of Wyoming, fits nicely on a PowerPoint slide because it's square. And paleontologically, it's really well known for things like dinosaurs, fossil fishes, fossil mammals, and other reptiles, including crocodiles and turtles. And what about fossil birds? Well, let's see. Let's start with a few famous fossil bird sites. Probably the best one in the world at this point is Liaoning province, and I know some of you guys at least are familiar with Jing Mei's work dealing with Cretaceous bird dinosaur things. This site has opened up the world of dinosaurs and birds in the past 20 years, like nothing else. But that's not the topic tonight. Other famous sites are the Niobrara Chalk in Kansas, which is famous for these two bird species, and the Messel Pit in Germany, which is Eocene, about 50 million years old after the dinosaurs died out. The Messel Pit that's the whole quarry there in the screen you're looking at. And it has produced lots and lots of fossil birds. Beautiful preservation, as you see in these two specimens. Of course, the one on the left is a mammal, but they get a lot of those too. What else? The Fur Formation in Denmark and the London Clay Formation, also Eocene. The Fur Formation is the squiggly cliffs you see there. And the top right bird is a specimen from out there. They get nice birds there in limestone. and the London clay at the bottom. The fossils there are three-dimensional and they come in little nodules, which you see there on the left. Kind of the one you can see center right is a nice complete bird skull. We'll get a little bit more about them. And the other great place for fossil birds is the Green River Formation here in Wyoming. And I'll just start by saying that if we didn't have birds in the Green River Formation, this talk would be pretty short and unexciting, but it's pretty cool. Moving on, Chapter 2, what is a bird? Well, we know birds are animals with feathers. We see them all over the place around us. They are technically dinosaurs, but that's a topic for Jing-Mei to talk about. Since we are paleontologists, we deal with bones. Here's a nice picture of a chicken. All you can see is his bones. And there are several bones that are often preserved as fossils and that are really distinctive, including the carpometacarpus. Let me see. Can you guys see my mouse? Yes, I see heads nodding. Cool. This is the carpometacarpus up here. This is actually two finger bones fused together, helps create the wing. The coracoid bone is one of the bones right in the shoulder area. Where is it in this drawing? It's that thing there, I think. No, it's in there, tucked in there somewhere between the wishbone and the scapula. It's got to be this thing. Coracoid. Yeah, side view. This is a head-on view. It's got all kinds of features you can identify on that. Very unique bone. And the other one that I'm going to talk about is the tarsometatarsus, which is the leg bone down here. These are three fused toe bones, if you will. And they have the typical, what I call three pulleys on the end where the toes, yet actual toe bones attach. Keep these bones in mind. This stuff will all be on the test, by the way, at the end of the evening. Here's some isolated tarsometatarsi. And what I want you to see here is just the variety of shapes, thickness, length, and the variety of shapes on the proximal end here where it joins to the knee, or the knee, and the shapes where it joins to the toes. You can see there's quite a variety of things. One of the number 4 here points, no, let's not look at number 4. Let's look at B. You see the three pulleys down here are flat lined across. That is typical of passerine birds, so songbirds. Pretty much everything you see in your backyard. Everything else here is different kind of birds. The earliest fossil bird that we know of is Archaeopteryx, and most folks are pretty familiar with this. It is a beautiful, well, there are several specimens now. The, 14th one is now in Chicago, which I have yet to see. But it's basically a dinosaur skeleton with feathers. It's got feathers, as we see in this specimen here. It's got teeth, which modern birds don't have. It's got a long bony tail, which modern birds don't have. It has separate fingers there instead of that carpometacarpus. It has claws on the fingers, which no bird has. And it has no keel, so no flight muscles, or not like a modern bird. And it doesn't have the fused metatarsals. This TMT, as I call it, is 3 separate bones. This dates back to the Jurassic of Germany. What else am I going to say about it? I don't know, but let's, what about pterosaurs? Pterosaurs are flying lizards, well, flying reptiles that went extinct at the same time as the dinosaurs. And you can see the wing structure in this one here. This is the extended 4th finger. The structure of the wing, the structure of the skeleton is completely different than birds. These things are not a bird. They are pterosaurs, very different group. So let's look at Wyoming's fossil bird record. Chapter 3. I'm going to be running basically up the time scale from the Jurassic here. You got some millions of years. You'll see this a few times. When we get to different time periods, I'm going to highlight them in red. Let's start with the Jurassic. Morse information, about 140 million years old. Over on the right-hand side, you see what those formations are well known for. Here's a Jurassic bird fossil. Now, if you ever want to be impressed by scraps of bone, this is an excellent specimen to be impressed by. This is from Quarry 9, which is about an hour and a half from here. It was found in 1880s. Marsh identified it as a bird, the back end of a skull, the same age as Archaeopteryx. in 100 years later, John Ostrom from Yale looked at it again with modern knowledge and said, nope, not a bird. This is a pterosaur. So we were hoping at this point, well, at that point, Wyoming had a claim to the oldest bird in the world, but it's not. So that's it for the Morse information. Moving up the scale in the Cretaceous, we have two different formations that are at 79 million years old, the Pierre Shale and the Mesa Verde. Pierre Shale is bottom of the ocean. Mesa Verde is land fossils. When I first did this talk 10, 15 years ago, the oldest fossil bird in Wyoming was the same age as these two fellows, which we saw earlier. These are the ones well known from Kansas. As you see here, this Ichthyornis is found in all these states. But what about Wyoming? Well, I should say this is the list for Hesperornis. I blew that. We have one Hesperornis vertebra from the Mesa Verde Formation west of Casper. That's it there. Not terribly impressive, but just last summer on a field trip with the Tate Conference, we found these three fossils. We have a femur here, we have a tarsometatarsus, and a toe bone. And these were found in eastern Wyoming by two separate people, about 50 feet apart, so they're not the same animal. But they are the bones I've highlighted in this little drawing of Hesperornis. The femur there, very short bone, very distinctive though, and the tarsometatarsus and the toe bone. And just to prove that they are not from the same animal, that's where they were found, very far apart from each other. We're going to keep looking in this area and hopefully find more, because at this point, this one here on the left with two bones attached to each other, and I'll just say real quick, you can see the three pulley toe bone connections right there, 1, 2, 3. But this is Wyoming's best Cretaceous fossil bird. Pretty impressive, huh? There they are. Moving up the Cretaceous pile, we get to the Lance Formation, well known for dinosaurs. This is what the Lance Formation typically looks like. And this is what I've spent a lot of time collecting, small Lance Formation fossils. And in amongst these things, I have not found any, but back in the 60s, and I should say actually, God, I want to say even much further back, there's a collection at Yale that includes a bunch of different fossil birds, and they're all isolated bones like this. Here we see a coracoid, quadrate, I mean, which is the bone that connects the jawbone and the lower and the skull and the lower jawbone of a toothed bird. Here we see a shorebird coracoid on the bottom left, and this little scoop-like thing is supposedly a lower jaw of a parrot, but a lot of people argue about that. The final list is this little list you see on the right-hand side. Galliforms, chicken-like birds, ducks, shorebirds, pelicans, tube noses, so that's albatrosses, pelicans, and parrots, and 5 birds that don't fit anywhere, and some birds that are typical Cretaceous birds named enantiornithines. I'll let Jing Mei talk about those when she does. I have nothing much else to say about them. Recently, an immature bird from the Lance Formation was published, and this thing, very nondescript fossils here. They CAT scanned it and were able to see a lot more of this thing, and they decided that it is a relative of, it's actually a modern bird related to a group called Galloanceres, which is chicken birds and ducks. They're primitive relatives. Exactly what it is, we can't really say. There's not much of it there. Another fun specimen, this is on a specimen called the Zerbst trackway. All the outlined tracks you see out there are dinosaurs, except for the 2 little bird tracks you see and pointed my red arrows. And dinosaurs and bird tracks are different because birds have a long toe claw that you can see there. And we were talking about the dinosaur earlier, the dinosaur I got married on, still in the field. This thing is part of a 16-foot long slab of rock. It is also still out there in the field. Moving past the Cretaceous extinction, let's go into the Paleocene. The Paleocene is the Fort Union Formation. Here's some bird tracks. This is about the best fossil bird from the Paleocene. But I spent my early years at the University of Wyoming collecting Paleocene small vertebrates. We collected a bunch of mammals and fish and a few birds. Somewhere in all this stuff, there are some bird fossils waiting to be discovered. Let's move up the pile to the bottom of the Eocene, the Willwood Formation. Famous for this creature, this is Diatryma or Gastornis. It's a very large, 6 feet tall relative of ducks. This is what it's been classically called a crane, but the latest studies say it's more closely related to primitive ducks that took up this great carnivorous. Well, I'm going to say carnivorous, but the latest studies also say that these things were vegetarians. There are two good skeletons of this. One of them is from Wyoming, one's from New Mexico, and they are just like most bird fossils, they are incredibly rare, even if you're looking in the right place. This is my colleague Russell is our token artist, and this is his drawing that he did as people were arguing, is it a vegetarian, is it a meativore? So he drew it looking at this horse with a not quite, I'm going to eat you, and not quite, don't eat my food. But that's what it looked like in real life. The Willwood Formation, also in northwestern Wyoming, outside the Yellowstone area, a few years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they found these limestone nodules, and you see Peter Hood here breaking one open. They found little mammal bones and mammal skulls. So they started dissolving some of these in limestone and started finding all kinds of birds. This is one of them is Paleocene. So these limestone nodules cross the border between the Paleocene and the Eocene. This is also related to the screamers. This is related to that big thing we just saw. And I'm not going to tell you all the names of these things in Latin. I'm just going to let you read those and take notes if you choose to. But we're starting to see, as compared to some of the other birds we've seen where we had one isolated bone, we're starting to see a fairly decent pile making one skeleton. On the other hand, this one has 3 or 4 bones preserved. It was originally published as a heron. The latest thing, someone argues it's a parrot. And this is my homework assignment for you guys. Heron or parrot? How does this happen? These things are so different from what we know. How can it be confused as a heron or a parrot? I'll let you guys think about that and send me an essay next week. Here's some examples of some of these Willwood nodules. We already saw this little skull on the top right, but there it is in a bigger block. This is how they dissolve them. They make a little acid-proof container, and then they fill them up with acid. Here you see a bunch of bird bones coming out of one of these blocks. Here you see the bones. Pretty much that's all that's left. There's the skull of the animal. These things are Peter Hood, whose name is down the bottom right. He's in New Mexico somewhere. Collected a bunch of these things and got sidetracked. And he's only, I think, now starting to get back into it. But there's a whole lot of stuff to be found in these things. One of the more common birds they are found is the thing called lithornithids. And I will pronounce that because it's a cool name. These are related to kiwis and tinamous, which are also related to ostriches, but they're closer to these two. If you don't know what a tinamu is, they're a South American, not quite flightless ratite. So they're related to the big flightless birds of the world, but they actually fly. And one of the main distinguishing features is the way the skull is built. This little tinamou has a skull that's much more similar to the kiwi of New Zealand than all the other birds. And Lithornis has a similar skull. Again, this thing is known from fairly complete skeletons. And it turns out that Lithornithids, the whole family, extinct family, I should say, was pretty common back in the Eocene. Again, we're talking 50 million years ago. One of the cool things about them, this is a couple of lithornithic beaks, and they have all these little dots, holes at the tip of the beak, suggesting that, like the modern snipe we see in the upper corner, that they could actually control the tip of their beak and open it up to eat things from underground, which is what the little kiwi down at the bottom does too. And at this point, there's 5 different species of these things from Wyoming, including the one we've just seen here. Actually, all 3 Lithornis, and we'll get to see a few more later. There's a thing in these limestone nodules called Paracathartes, which is another lithornithid. And this one was found with eggs. What was it? 5 individuals and 3 eggs. So that's pretty cool. And as you can see, I couldn't find a good picture of the thing, so I didn't put one in. And look, they've also found a vulture, but that's all they've got. This is a modern turkey vulture. That's the beak of something. They're calling it a vulture because it's similar enough. And again, one of the big things about vultures is they have this huge opening with the nose, the nasal opening. This thing does too. So is this a vulture or is it something closely related? For the time being, it's a vulture. There are also things like hoopos and bee eaters. You know, I should have asked at the beginning how many actual bird watchers we have in the crowd. People who aren't bird watchers won't know what a hoopoe or a bee eater is, but there's pictures of the modern ones at the bottom. And these things are old world creatures. They live south of Europe, pretty much in Africa. This is a European bee eater, which gets into Europe as far north as southern Spain and southern France. The hoopoe is a little bit more European, but they're the only 2 European members. There's a whole bunch of them in Africa, and I think going all the way to India. But there's some of these things in the Willwood Formation. And there are sand coalies. This is another extinct family that is well represented. Again, the picture in the middle is one bird from one nodule, all etched out with acid. Pretty impressive compared to those early specimens we saw with our half a bone. And these things are related to coalies or mouse birds. Raise your hand if you know what a mouse bird is. Wow, we got one. Mouse birds are an order of birds. There's only 6 of them found in the world, and they all live in Africa. And they look something like this thing here, the illustration. And they're called mouse birds because they run around in the trees and they are soft. They look soft and they look like mice running around in trees. But they have long tails, and skeletally they're fairly distinctive. And these things, sand coalies, are a whole group of them. As you see here in the Willwood Formation, there are 2 different ones. And the funny thing about the name, the sand coalie, the coalie they are named after, that's the alternative name for mouse birds. But these things were found in a place called Sand Coulee. See what the guy did there? Sand Coalidae, Sand Coulee. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. There's also an owl, again, taken out of a limestone nodule. This, again, is the skeleton they found. Notice no skull on this one. So big thing about owls, we all know they're nocturnal. Is this one nocturnal? We can't tell because there's no skull to go with it. The skull of an owl with the forward-facing huge eyes is what would tell us it's nocturnal. So here's the rundown of Willwood Formation birds. Again, we're in the early Eocene. I'm going to say 55 million years, no, 50 to 55 million years ago, let's say. And then let's move up the Eocene into the Wasatch, which is about the same age, but slightly different. Not many birds known from this, but there's one site called Turtle Graveyard. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. There's one site called Turtle Graveyard where they've collected a lot of turtles and crocodiles and fish and mammals. And you see here, they've also found a lot of different birds. And again, most of these are identified from individual bones. And some of these, if I use my mouse, presbyornids, we'll see what they are later. Geronoidids are kind of related to cranes, and so are these things. And another small crane-like animal, and a shorebird. Lots of woodpecker relatives, and lots of rollers, bee-eaters type things, kingfishers. Yes, rollers, bee-eaters, and kingfishers are all one group of birds. Whoops, wrong. Oh, I don't want to do that. There. Here's a couple of other Wasatch Formation bones. The two in black and white have been published and they have actual names. The other ones are stuff that I've found in my wanderings in the Eocene in Wyoming. The one on the bottom right is one of my favorite ones because it's blue and you just don't see that every day. Again, we're looking at tarso-metatarsus on both of these bones and a piece of eggshell. Uh, Wind River Formation is it's the same age, early Eocene, but closer to Casper here. Here's one piece of bone published as an owl. And one of the things about owls is that they have two fingers or two toes that go forward, two toes that go backwards. So when you look at the toe attachment point, these are where the three of the four toes attach. Front side, back side, and head-on look, they have this very curved look where one of those three toes that normally faces forward, one of them is going to have this curved connection point so it can face backwards. So owl tarso-metatarsi are fairly distinctive, even if you have only this piece. And I've found some eggshells myself, but that's a different story. Moving up, we get into some much more interesting stuff at this point. The Green River Formation, famous for fossil fishes. The Green River Formation is found in southwest Wyoming and on the Colorado-Utah line. This little piece over here, Fossil Lake, there are a dozen commercial fish quarries out there. The fossil fish from the Fossil Lake have been sold in gift shops all over the world. Years ago, I went to visit one of my uncles in Switzerland, and right there on his mantelpiece, he had a fossil fish from Wyoming that he had bought in Switzerland. Most of the commercial fish activity goes on here, Fossil Lake, and because these guys dig up lots and lots of fish every year, they do have the advantage that they will find the less common things like birds. But let's see. There's examples of fish from the Green River Formation. So these things are found on layers of rock that split open nicely, revealing what's inside. Stingrays are one of the rare things. Turtles, very uncommon. Plants, common down in Colorado and Utah, not so much in Wyoming. And same with the insects. And alligators also found. And what else we got? Frogs. I think there's only 2 frog specimens known. Shrimps are common in some places. Bats are incredibly rare. And birds. This is, I'll have to look up on my notes. I'm going to cheat here for a second. This was found a long time ago. I can't find it in my notes right now. 1869. So this is right shortly after the Civil War when the train tracks were coming west. They went right through the Green River Formation outside of the town of Green River, Wyoming. And that's when they actually started finding fossil fishes out there. And in addition to the fish, someone found these feathers. The way these beds work, they find these birds, or all these fossils kind of stuck between layers of rock, and then they delicately prepare the rock off. So we got a before and after example here of a bird. Oh, that's a repeat. The first bird they actually found is this thing here, Gallinaluloides, which is a stem galliform. That means it's a ancestor to the chicken-like birds. Fairly decent size of a grouse, not quite as big as a turkey. And this one is in the museum in Harvard. It was published in 1900, a long time ago, and related to the curassow, which is the most primitive of our modern chicken birds. And these things are found in the modern ones are found in South America. Here's another nice example that's in the Wyoming Dinosaur Center. And look, more lithornithids. This is beautiful skeletons of a couple of different lithornithids. Pseudocrypturus is the name of this one. And this is a pretty big bird. This is almost turkey size. Since it was first described, there's a few others have come to light, including these two. There's quite a few of them. And then this is one of the few examples of a non-terrestrial or non-forest bird. This is Limnofregata, which is related to the modern frigate bird. If any of you guys spend any time in the south, in the South Florida, or any place south of that, you might have seen these things. They are very large birds. They steal fish from seagulls and terns, and they have this big red air sac that they blow up. The males do when they're trying to look cool for women. This thing here, Limnofragata, is a freshwater frigate bird, basically. Did it have an air sac? We'll never know. That's soft tissue preservation. And whereas we do get feathers in some of these fossils, we don't have evidence, I should say yet, of an air sac like that. Most of the time when these things are flying around, that big red air sac is not visible. And Storrs Olson described this thing in the 70s, I think. And one of the things he said is that certain parts of the bird looks like this bird, certain parts of the bird look like other birds. And he said this, and I'll just read this: the inadvisability of basing higher taxonomic categories of Paleogene birds on fragmentary limb elements, particularly when these bear no close resemblance to modern taxa, thus becomes evident. And he's basically saying that if you have these ends of long bones and you try to identify them, that you might be making mistakes, because the end of one long bone from the same bird might tell you this is a duck. The end of this long bone from a different long bone from the same bird might say, oh no, this is a sandpiper. So he is saying that, is he saying that all these little things that we saw previously, let's see if I can go back, blah, blah, blah. Now, why am I doing this? Is he saying that fossils like this owl fossil, are not worth identifying? I don't know if he's saying that much, but he's saying definitely don't bet too much on it. But most fossil birds are actually that kind of thing. Meanwhile, more Limnofragata specimens have come to light, including all of these. And then this is the second species, slightly smaller. And then we have Vada ravis, which is a heron, possibly an ibis. Again, no skull on this one. Fell off the rock, as it were. We have Mesolornis, which is a rail. For those who don't know what a rail looks like, this is an Audubon picture of a rail down here. And I mentioned the Messel site in Germany. Notice the name of this one, Mesolornis, which means bird of Messel. In Germany, at the Messel site, they have found hundreds, if not thousands, of these things. They were very common in Germany. Not so common here, but they are more than one or two specimens. Here's one that's disarticulated. Again, these are rails. Here's one that's really squashed. You see a couple of fish here on the left, a couple more fish on the bottom. Here's a bird's foot. What else can I see in here? Lots of feathers, but the feathers tend to obscure the bones. But just to show you what these things might have looked like shortly after death, here's a Virginia rail that I found while walking my dog in my neighborhood last 2 Octobers ago, a few Octobers. Again, here's the feet sticking out, the head over here. This would have made a perfect fossil. But for those who don't like that, let's move on. Here's a couple more rail specimens. And you see, at this point, we're starting to get some birds that are well enough known that we can identify isolated leg bones from these things and be pretty certain about them. The bottom right specimen is one from Germany. Again, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of Mesolornis rails over there. Here's a couple of undescribed birds. Gruiformes means cranes, relatives of cranes, which rails are, by the way. And then we have this thing, which was recently described. Is it a crane? Is it a shorebird? We don't know yet. There's just not enough distinctive characteristics. And one of the problems with these flattened birds is that to really look at, for example, the 3 pulleys on the bottom of that this one here, tarsometatarsus, which is a fairly distinctive bone, you have to look at it in 3 dimensions. And it's really hard to look at these things in 3 dimensions. And even if you can, oftentimes they are crushed, so you might not be getting good data. And then we get to the Primobuconidae. This is a family related to kingfishers or woodpeckers. The taxonomy in these things is very confusing. I'm just going to let you look at the pictures because that's what we like to see. In the top right, we have a jacamar and a puffbird, which are tropical modern relatives that are pretty close to some of these birds. Here's one of those Primobuconidae, published as a puffbird, but now is possibly a ground roller, and then a primitive roller. These things will not be on the test. You will not be expected to know that. But again, this is another one that there's quite a few specimens of. The bottom living bird is a roller. That's what they look like. Fairly common in Africa. Lots of different specimens of this thing. Here's another one of the closer relatives. These things, the modern ones, are found in the neotropics, so South Central America, down south of us. And then we have an early parrot. I'm not going to say very much of it, except here's another parrot. And I left this whole paragraph in here. I'm going to let you guys just skim over it, because when people go ahead and describe these things, this is the kind of thing they're looking at. And to be able to do that takes a lot of specialized training, and certainly not the kind of thing I'm going to bore you guys with, because heck, I don't know it. But this is the kind of thing that is in all these bird identification papers. I also left the map of parrots, modern parrots, on the bottom, so we can see where parrots are. And this thing is basically a modern parrot. We have Cyrillabus, which is somewhere between parrots and passeriforms. So again, a very beautiful specimen, but exactly where it fits in, hard to say. This is different species of the same thing. Again, exactly where they fit in the birds. This one's a little more distinctive in that it's got this is the lower jaw here of the fossil Prefica, and that is the lower jaw of an oil bird, which you see the picture of down here. This is an oil bird, pretty good. No one disputes that. The map over here shows you where oil birds are found, everywhere from Venezuela down to Bolivia. We see a recurring theme, don't we? This is fluvo, I have my view is blocked, so I'm going to let you guys read that. Fluvoviridavus, it's a frogmouth. That's what a frogmouth looks like, modern day. This is the map shows where fossil frogmouths have been found, the Green River, Messel, and some down here. Notice the shaded in map of Australia, New Guinea, and down Southeast Asia, Indonesia. That's where modern frogmouths are living. Again, a recurring theme. This is a stem coraciform, so this is related, an ancestor to the rollers and ground rollers and hoopos and bee eaters, a lot of birds we don't have here. And a cuckoo roller. Notice the map again. Oh, look, there they are in Madagascar, modern ones. That's one of them right there. Aniavis anii, named after Peter Hood's wife, is also a sandcola. Remember, we saw those earlier. So this is the specimen here. You can see a lot of feathers squished in there and a couple of fish. Again, the map of Africa showing kind of where these birds live nowadays. This is the same specimen coated with whatever that aluminum powder they use to highlight the three-dimensionalness. You see, it's a very nice specimen. Clearly, there's no one argues that this is a mouse bird of some sort, and that's what they looked like back in the Eocene. And then we have a wonderful little another one. This is a different species of mouse bird. The three arrows in the left picture are pointing to its tail feathers. Hard to see, but that's what's going on over there. Long tail. And then Phoropanareum. That's the specimen. Again, a beautiful specimen. It's been interpreted 3 different times as a cuckoo, a hoatzin, or as turaco. And that just tells you kind of where these animals live. Again, nowhere near Wyoming. Artist reconstruction of the thing in life. The colorful bird is a modern turaco, African specialist. And then we have a basal hummingbird or a swift. Hummingbirds and swifts are grouped together primarily because they have very, very small feet. And this thing here from the Green River Formation is part of that group. There's also another undescribed swift. This is a very small bird here, 1, 2, 2.5, almost 3 inches long, with legs and skull. Then we get to a few birds that are close to passerines, which is our main, right now, our main, most popular, I should say, species-wide group of birds. Includes all the birds you see in your backyard and in the forest, pretty much. Songbirds. A couple of different species of these things. And this one was published just last month. Again, another one with nice feather impressions. And another one, this one's even cool because you can see stripes on the tail. Very excellent preservation there. And then there's a couple things yet to be described that I know of. This one's a kingfisher or a hoopoe, probably a kingfisher because it's got a huge beak, which kingfishers have. And then we get to Presbyornis. Presbyornis was found not in the Green River lakes, but in some of the shoreline deposits of the Green River Formation. And it's found in nesting colonies. This is a collection at the University of Wyoming. All of these are Presbyornis bones. Let's see what else we got. Here's a close-up of the tarsometatarsus and the carpometacarpus. Is that right? The leg bone, wing bone. And here's a pile of coracoid bones. Again, whoops, let's go back. These are the bones that connect the wing, the wing to the shoulder. And this is from the ones, all the individual bones are from one site. There's also a lot of eggshells. So it's argued that it's a nesting site. Sounds good to me. This one here on the bottom is a different site with lots and lots of bones. Again, same species, but then different kind of rock. And so far, I think they have found so far 11 different nesting sites of this thing. There's a couple more examples, and they have found footprints associated with Presbyornis. You can see the nice webbed feet here. And this is an undescribed wing that was found in the Green River Formation. If you like to look at stereo photos, that is a stereo photo. You can cross your eyes, hopefully, and make that thing jump out in 3 dimensions. And my little illustration here describes the bones you're looking at compared to the scientific and the buffalo wing section of a chicken wing. Excuse me. And that is what we have found in the Green River Formation. This will all be on the test, so memorize it. And now I'd like to compare it real quick with let's see, Green River Formation and the Fur Formation, and backtrack. Underneath my graph, it also says London clay and messel. Notice lots of different bird species. So the right side of the list is the birds found in Wyoming here in the Green River Formation. Then you get what kind of bird is it? And is there similar relatives in Denmark at the Fur Formation? Yes or no? Yes or blank. Same with the London clay in the UK and messel in Germany. And on the right-hand side, you can see that some of these things, a lot of these things are not found anywhere near either Europe or North America at this point. A couple things I'll say. The Green River Formation, the Field Museum just bought one of the commercial fish quarries collection of Green River birds. So those guys at the Field Museum will be studying Green River birds for a long time. There's a lot of work yet to be done on these things. The Fur Formation in Denmark is a site where you can publicly dig, and Denmark has rules that if you find something cool, really cool, it stays in the country and goes to the National Museum. So if anybody finds a bird fossil, they end up in the National Museum, and this has led Denmark to have a pretty good collection of these things. The London clay specimens where pretty much there's a collection of 500, I think, specimens that one guy collected over 20 years at a place called Walton on the Naze, and his family recently donated them to the museum in Scotland, in Edinburgh. 500 specimens, and they are only now starting to describe these things. And Messel in Germany, the museum in the Senckenberg Museum in Frankfurt, it's only 20 minutes away from the quarry, has active digs there every year, so they are quickly adding more and more bird species. So I think in the next 20 years, we are going to have an even better picture of Eocene birds around the world. Well, no, Eocene birds in North America and Europe. What about the rest of the world? Well, we just haven't found any good good bird deposits of this age, and in general, except for that stuff in China, which is much older than this. So let's see. Oh, and if you like these things and want to actually know more about them and study for the test, this book is coming out soon. And as long as we're shamelessly plugging things, if anybody wants to come to Wyoming in end of May, this is our annual Tate conferences happening then. And let's move up the geological column. So the Green River Formation has great birds. The Bridger Formation is the same age as the Green River, but more rivery and river deposits and overbank deposits. Not much known from the Bridger Formation. Amitabha is one bird that was found in a pile of bones, and it's either a chicken-like bird or maybe a rail. Eobuco both of these, Euentornis and Burtaroides, isolated bones, but they're both sandcoles. Again, that family of extinct birds seems to show up a lot. And there are two different species of owl, again, identified from just one isolated ends of TMTs, Torsometatarsus. And then there's this thing here. This is actually a pretty good skeleton of an early falcon. John Alexander at the Burke Museum found this. We're looking at the skull on the left and articulated foot on the right. He has most of the skeleton on this thing. It is yet to be described, but this will eventually be a very important and exciting bird fossil. And there are also a few other random birds. Bathornis is a turkey vulture-like thing, and as illustrated there, but with long legs. And there's also specimens of Juncatarsus, which is a very long-legged animal. This is a messel bird, a messel specimen of Juncatarsus. And there are eggshell fragments. And there's a place called the Omomes Quarry in the Bridger Formation that has various, again, probably this was quarried for small mammals primarily. Omomes is a nocturnal primate, and there was a lot of omomes at this site. And some flamingo berms, some hawks, some rails, geranoidid, which again is a crane relative. There are shorebirds and eggshells and an implied owl. The implied owl is implied because Omomes is a primate with very large forward-facing eyes. The very large eyes imply that it is nocturnal. It's very rare, mostly in any Bridger Formation site. But at this site, it is the most common mammal. So the guys who studied this suggest that these Omomes little primates were being hunted by a nocturnal owl. I think that's pretty cool. Moving up into the White River Formation, which is well known for fossil mammals. Here's an Oreodont skull weathering out. Most common bird fossils in the White River are eggs. They have been there's one study on these things. Here you see at least two different sizes of eggs. One of these is supposedly related to limpkins, which are, if you know what a limpkin is, they are found down in southern Florida. They are also a crane relative. But there are several different kinds, and there's more work to be done on these things. There's also a handful of isolated bones. that come from, well, Buteo on the left is a hawk. So we're getting into actual modern genera. Buteo is your red-tailed hawk. And Bathoenus uh, is related to this crested Seriema, which is, again, a primitive duck-like thing, even though it looks nothing like a duck. There's also been a toady. This is the Cuban toady, the modern Cuban toady. This thing is the nice skull is the skull of this fella. The crappy skull is the fossil skull. And so is this one down here. This specimen came out of a nodule that also contained 4 owl specimens. So that's pretty exciting. It's at the Smithsonian and has not been worked on for a while. The owls are waiting to be explored. This is one that we found on a field trip at the Tate Museum. Again, there's that tarsometatarsus with 2 articulated toe bones. This is the same bone after we pulled it out of the rock. Moving up into the Miocene, we are about 15 million years old now. There's not much Miocene stuff known in Wyoming except for this thing. This is one that I found in a fish bed up by Cheyenne, southeast corner of the state, and it was being studied by a guy in one of the southern states. I can't remember which one now. And he said it's probably closely related to a robin. So that's kind of cool. And then Wyoming has no Pliocene deposits. We have some Pleistocene. Let's go see what we have there. Cave deposits. This is Natural Trap Cave, which has made the news quite a bit lately in the past few years. It is a vertical drop cave. That's the opening up on top. And it is in the Pleistocene, many animals fell into it and died down the bottom where you see the 3 explorers down there. And you can see a 4th guy over here rappelling down into it. In 2015, I think, Julie Meacham at the University of Des Moines started collecting up in there again. It hadn't been open since the 70s. And she invited us to come up, so I got to go in. And while I was down inside digging up individual bones, we had a crew on the surface going through the screen washing sediments, and they found lots and lots of bird bones. The bird bones were the most common small bones they were finding. And if you look at this, we have at least 3 different kinds of birds based on just the tarsometatarsus here. That's kind of cool. These will be being studied. And my big question is, and I don't understand this, I can understand how animals walking on land can fall into this hole, end up at the bottom of a pit and either die by falling or starve to death down there. But why are so many dead birds down there? Answer me that one. Birds can fly out, in theory. So if anybody wants to work on a PhD on that, I invite them to call Julie Meacham, Des Moines. There we go. Summary. Wyoming's oldest fossil birds are Cretaceous, and the Cretaceous record and Paleocene records are poor. Eocene is amongst the best in the world, and there are lots more to be found, including the Willwood fossil specimens, or the Willwood limestones, I should say. Lots more Green Rivers birds coming into light, and they are very similar to the birds of modern Europe. And I also forgot to mention that back in the Eocene, Europe and North America were connected. So not only are the birds similar, but the mammals are very similar too. So we have Hyracotherium, the dawn horse, here in Wyoming and in Paris and London. Wyoming's post-Eocene bird record's not well known, and there's a lot of work to be done. If anybody out there wants to be a paleoornithologist, let me know. I can hook you up. And I will just say thank you to all these people for photos. Thank you for all these people. And I don't know what's next. There are still lots of birds that I was able to get pictures of and bird parts to be described. End of discussion. Thanks for listening.
That
Whew.
you could have talked for another hour. You have so much information.
I
And
know,
you
there's
were
so
just,
much information. Right.
oh, it's amazing.
Some of these people could probably talk for an hour on one of those specimens. Not me. I don't know them that well.
What a roller is, though.
Hi, Trick.
Howdy. What's a roller?
What's a roller? Roller is a generally colorful, fairly large bird that eats insects and seeds, and they are found in mostly Africa to India, I think all the way to Asia in hot climates, and they're well known for being very colorful. And I don't know, they're related to kingfishers and bee eaters. What makes them all similar to each other? I don't know. There's two families of non-songbirds that are very unique, I guess. Kingfishers and the rollers is one, and then the woodpeckers, which are familiar to us. Woodpeckers are related to toucans because they are like owls. They, if you guys can see me, they have 2 feet going forward, 2 toes going forward, and 2 toes going backwards, and that's a fairly distinctive trait of woodpeckers and toucans and jacamars and toadies, which are, again, tropical things that we don't really get here. Does that answer your question, Trick, or did I talk too long?
Just was trying to figure out where the name came from, actually.
Oh, sorry, I'm glad you asked it because their display flight, actually, they kind of roll around, falling down out of the sky, rolling. That's why. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a real quick. How did that blue fossil get so blue and so purely blue?
I wish I knew, but that site where I collect, I can go there and collect 200 bones, and 2 of them will be bluish. That one is incredibly blue, and I started screen washing at that site looking for more blue bones, and I did not get any.
Do they know what the composition is? I mean, is it from a
It's got to be
certain?
it's got to be some kind of copper mineral. And
There's blue bones on Shelf Road in Colorado.
On where?
Shelf Road.
What's the age of that stuff?
Oh, I don't know. Dennis, Shelley.
I don't remember.
I mean, is it Cenozoic stuff?
I don't think so.
I can't remember. There's fish bones there in the rock, and then I think some dinosaur bones also are blue.
Okay, so it's older. Yeah, I've got some crocodile bones from that site that are just like as blue as my sweater.
Wow,
Yeah, it's just stunning.
that
And
is amazing.
some of them at the same site will go from blue to tan to dark brown in one single bone.
So, what is the theory on? So many of these birds are now only found in Africa, or I mean, by the time you get to the Eocene, everything had separated. So, what is there?
Why are they no longer here is the big question. I
Yeah.
don't know, and it could be. You notice that there weren't any songbirds. There were some close relatives near the end there. But songbirds came in much stronger in the Oligocene, and it could be that the songbirds kind of took over and pushed all these other forest birds, and they're mostly all forest birds, probably pushed them out, and they all became extinct, except in places where you probably had, I don't know, more rich environments where they could survive. I don't know. Another PhD dissertation right there.
Has laser fluorescence been applied to many of these samples that you've shown us?
What's that, Shelley?
Laser fluorescence that
I
purple.
haven't tried it. I had you know Tom Kay, right?
I know the name. I can't
Yeah,
think
he's
of
the
who
one
that
who's
is.
he's the one who's doing the laser fluorescence stuff.
Okay.
And he invented a machine that would sort microfossils based on laser fluorescence. So it's basically you shoot a laser at something and they glow for half a second, and you get a machine that reads that half a second glow, and you can see different stuff. Tom invented a machine, that would separate fossils from rocks, but he looked at this thing one day with his laser machine, and you didn't see anything new on it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that means the preservation only kept the bones then, not much
Yeah,
else.
this one is, yeah, no, it's only bones. But Tom for those who don't know, he's looked at some of these things from China, some of the Jingmei's specimens, and found some just incredible soft tissue detail that you cannot see with the naked eye. So, I mean, there's hope. I don't know if he's looked at many Green River specimens. It would be cool.
So the birds' bones in the caves, are they related to like cliff swallows and some of those other birds that nest in caves?
You know, I don't know what the birds in the cave are at this point, but they're probably pretty close to, they're definitely modern-ish because they're Pleistocene. They're 15,000 years old, I think. So, and I don't know if they'd be cliff swallows. I mean, there's cliff swallows nesting in there. But
I'm just wondering, I mean, because I know there are several birds in, various places that do nest in caves.
right. And I mean, in Wyoming, I mean, it's hard to say, but even just looking at these three tarsometatarsisuses, there are three different species of birds. And this is just a small sample of the hundreds of birds' bones. So I don't know.
Maybe they were nesting there and there was some
It could be,
virus that
or this
knocked a bunch of them out periodically.
it could also be. I'm looking at this one here. This could be a young bird because the three metatarsals have not completely fused. So that could be a nestling that fell out.
There's no pathology on them?
We were screen picking and I just took a picture.
Gotcha.
Off I went.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of room for not a knowledge vacuum there right now.
There is, and half of that is because of these huge donations or purchases that the museums are making. The fossils are there. They just now are waiting to be studied.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good time to be a paleoornithologist if this is what you want to do. Screw the dinosaurs.
I
mean, there's still dinosaurs,
JP?
but
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I was just mentioning that I know in recent years now they have found more feathers on dinosaurs because of the where the feathers attach, where they've been able to spot that now.
Right. Some of the stuff I know exactly. For example, some of the Rarity, which is a Cretaceous thing from Madagascar. For those who don't know it, when you're eating your chicken bones on your chicken wings, if you take the one that has, if it's the radius ulna, so the one that has two bones in it, along the edge of that, if you run your thumbnail on one of the edges there, you should be able to feel where the wing feathers were attached to the bone. It's hard to see it, but you can often feel it with your thumb or whatever finger you choose. And I got to handle the Raurenavis specimen at Stony Brook, which came from Madagascar, Cretaceous dinosaur thing, and it had quill lumps along the ulna, I think it is. That was pretty cool.
So there's a chat question. If Archaeopteryx does not have all the other things that birds have, is Archaeopteryx the first bird?
Is it what bird?
Is it the first bird?
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't have any of the things that define a modern bird.
It has feathers. And I mean, you go back that far and you go back to all the stuff that's coming out of China in the past 20 years, the line between birds and dinosaurs is very fuzzy, which is pretty darn exciting. I mean, it's the same thing has happened with the evolution of whales. And again, in the same past 20 years, where do you draw the line? We have these whales that have legs, and we have swimming animals that could be whales. There's a lot of things that are very fuzzy.
Another question is, could the bird bones in the caves be in the stomach of predators that were then trapped in the caves?
Absolutely. That's an excellent idea. I like it. Because birds are yummy. That little guy on your lap, he agrees with me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Actually, she could She could care less about a bird.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. She's not a hunter. Mm. There's so
JP,
much information. I have so many questions, but go ahead. Other people.
so what I was saying is that the line, that fuzzy line may have to do with the actual lightness of the bones as opposed to slightly heavier bones for real dinosaurs, non-avian. Whereas the lighter bones, the lighter you get, you reach a point now where well, these guys can fly, so then you move into the bird category, not necessarily talking about the flightless birds, but
Right.
the flight birds, when they became able to fly, it's because their bones were so light.
But the bones had to be light before they could be able to fly. So why did the bones get light, allowing them to fly? I think it's because they were jumping out of trees.
Yeah, exactly. Flying squirrels.
Yeah, yeah. How close are flying squirrels to actually developing flight? Let's hang out for another 50 million years.
Right. They'll get there.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
I'm looking at the chat now. Let's
so
see.
heron to parrots.
What's
How
that?
how did they mistake the one from a heron to a parrot?
It depends on what the bones. I don't know. It's looking at the details of these things and comparing them. Most of these people, they go to the museum in Gainesville at the University of Florida has the best modern bird bone collection, and I think a lot of these guys go spend time in Gainesville and compare them to the modern birds. And if you don't have, for example, that tarsometatarsus with the three things, which are fairly distinctive all throughout the whole bird world, you get some pretty subtle differences in some of these birds. So yeah, let's see.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask a really, it's probably going to be obvious to everybody else, but I'm going to ask it because I can't think at the top of my head. But why did the fossil record basically dry up after the Oligocene?
Uh, the lakes went away. We have no lakes. I mean, those lakes were fairly big, as you saw on the map, and they were in a depositional environment, so they were always filling in. I mean, we have lakes now that might not be filling in as much, but you have to have lakes that exist and slow deposition, but steady. I mean, the layers on the Green River Formation are nice. I mean, they're beautifully even layered. So we have slow, probably annual kind of deposition. And after the middle Eocene, those lakes disappeared. They just evaporated, I don't know if they evaporated, probably, or just got leaked out into back to modern rivers that led them out to the Pacific or the Atlantic. And then we don't have any lakes. That one I showed at the end, the Miocene bird, came from a small lake deposit in southeast Wyoming that has fish, a lot of fish in it, and so far one bird. So yeah, the lake deposits and that's what the Chinese deposits are. They're all lake deposits. It's good stuff.
Also said that you have to have what happened in the lakes there before was the salt at the bottom preserved the bones, preserved the fossil.
Mm, yeah, it probably has something to do with it. There's all kinds of discussions.
We don't have that in modern lakes that we have now.
Well, you do in some places. Well, I shouldn't say modern, but there's some Pleistocene lakes in Oregon where they preserve lots of ice age bones, mostly birds.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting where they're preserved along with fish in the same general layer.
And actually, since you brought that up, it's interesting that most of these birds, except for Limnophragata and maybe the shorebird, they're all forest birds.
Yeah, they're not the wading birds.
They're not. There's a handful of wading birds, yeah, the rails, but they're not ducks, they're not geese, they're mostly forest birds, which suggests to me, I don't know, did they die flying over the lake? What self-righteous roller would fly over a lake?
Well, there's been,
Get to the other
Knights are
side.
leaping out.
Maybe they were still fledglings learning to fly. Wasn't there some fossils of that too, like not that long ago, that they were baby birds or fledgling birds that sank into an ocean?
I don't know that one.
I
I
thought
don't know.
I that came up on my feed recently. It might have been like years ago, but yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay, maybe the find was years ago, but it came up on my feed recently.
geologically recently.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
No, I'm not familiar with that one offhand.
wow. That's just it's so rich. And then, I mean, I know there have to be other areas where the fossil record picks up because these birds didn't just like disappear. They moved somewhere.
Well, they
And
move
to be
somewhere,
able-
but if you don't have the lakes that have the right sedimentation, and I mean, one of the beautiful things about Wyoming is that we have these exposed rocks, and it's easy to dig. The stuff at Messel, they found that because I think they were digging a hand oil well back in the 20s or something, and they started finding fossils. Uh, there's this when you start getting in other places where there's trees, Illinois, east of Illinois, it's really hard to find fossils. You have to go to a quarry or a shore or a riverbank. Out here in Wyoming, you just walk around. We don't have those trees in the way. But yeah, and then I mean, if you really want to look in the tropics, that's even more difficult. Rocks make it to the surface in the tropics, and it's so wet they just turn to soil.
Yeah. So what's your most amazing, and don't say the blue one because it's got to be something else. Most amazing find.
Yeah, it's one of my cooler fossils. When I die, it'll all go to the Tate Museum, or when I get senile next week.
It's your T-Rex, JP.
T-Rex.
What's that?
That T-Rex you found.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's already here at the Tate.
Yeah.
We do have a T-Rex that Trick mentioned.
Okay.
Trick, by the way, is one of these people from Whips, as is Shelley, who has a picture of a cat there. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Yeah. Dennis too is here.
You have good stories.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask every time I see you now, though, have you started your book?
Working on it. Thanks.
Yeah, I like the microfossils. I am really,
I do too. It's,
they're so interesting and there's so much to learn, and they fit into my house.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
I want to mention that I'm going to share my screen real quick. We had in June of 2025, John Moretti from University of Texas come and talk about inner space cavern.
Oh.
And so that was like a sinkhole type cavern, like what you were talking about. And so somewhere in his talk, he said owls like to roost around cave mouths and often will deposit the remains of their prey into caves.
I like it. Yes.
So I wonder,
That would explain birds.
Yeah, but those weren't owls you were finding, was it?
Yeah.
Owl bones, but owls also predate on.
No, he did say there was an owl. He did say there was the owl.
Was there an owl? Okay.
Yeah, no, that would explain it quite eeasily, actually.
Yeah, so that's possible.
Just like
I made that connection.
like the implied Eocene owl site.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn good memory, Chris.
Thanks. I was like, where have I
I'm
seen this
impressed.
before?
I'm impressed.
I pay attention at these meetings, you can see.
Yeah, we'll keep you around a little more. Keep you remember. Yeah.
So you want to come out here and do a PhD somewhere on all these specimens?
If only I had known this like 40 years ago.
Yeah, right. Me too.
I probably need to stop the recording at this point, I would
All
say,
right.
Catherine, right?
Any
But
last questions, kids?
we can keep asking if you want, and